In this video, we are going to study about the metacarpal bones. The metacarpal bones are the miniature long bones and they are 5 in number and they are numbered from lateral to medial side. Each metacarpal bone possesses a diaphysis. So this is the diaphysis, and then you have a epiphysis. The epiphysis of all the metacarpal are directed towards the head. So this forms the epiphysis of the metacarpal bone, and this is the diaphysis of the metacarpal bone. Except for the first metacarpal bone, where the epiphysis is directed towards the base. So for the first metacarpal bone, the epiphysis is directed towards the base, which is similar to that of the phalangeal bones. Therefore, some authors consider that the first metacarpal bone is a modified phalanx. Each metacarpal bone consists of a head, then you have the shaft or the body, and then you have the base. So these three are the parts of the metacarpal bone: head, shaft or body, and then you have the base. The head of the metacarpal bone is articular and it is directed below. It is convex and it extends more on the palmar surface and articulates with the base of the proximal phalanx. The head is slightly larger than the base and they form the knuckles of the hand. Next we'll see about the shaft of the metacarpal bone. The shaft gets narrower from head to base and it is slightly concave proximo-distally on the palmar surface. So what you are seeing is a palmar surface, and this surface is divided by a longitudinal ridge into an anteromedial and an anterolateral sloping areas. Here you are seeing the dorsal surface of the shaft of the metacarpal bone. So the dorsal surface presents a triangular flattened area. So this is a triangular flattened area with the apex pointing towards the base. So this is the apex which points towards the base of the metacarpal bone. So such triangular flattening is not observed on the dorsal surface of the first metacarpal bone. Next we'll see the base of the metacarpal bone. The base of the metacarpals articulates with the distal row of the carpal bone. The first metacarpal bone articulates with the saddle-shaped distal articular surface of the trapezium. So this is the trapezium. So it articulates with the distal articular surface of the trapezium, forming the first carpo-metacarpal joint. So carpal bone, this is the metacarpal bone. So first carpo-metacarpal joint. So the base of the first metacarpal bone articulates with the distal articular surface of the trapezium, forming a carpo-metacarpal joint. So which is completely isolated from other carpo-metacarpal joint for the free movements of the thumb. Next we'll see the base of the second metacarpal bone. It is grooved to fit the anteroposterior ridge of the distal surface of trapezoid bone. The trapezoid bone does not project so far distally as the other carpal bone. Eventually, the base of the second metacarpal bone is caught between the trapezium and the capitate. So this makes the metacarpal bone more immobile and rigid. Next we'll see about the base of the third metacarpal bone. So this articulates with the plane surface of the capitate bone, and its mobility is restricted like that of the second metacarpal bone. Next we'll see the bases of the fourth and the fifth metacarpal bone. They articulate with the two concave facets of the distal surface of the hamate bone. They enjoy greater range of hinge movements than the second and the third metacarpal bone. Next we'll see the position of the first metacarpal bone. So this is the first metacarpal bone. So when you see the first metacarpal bone, it is placed on more anterior plane than the rest of the metacarpal bone, and it is rotated medially along its long axis through an angle of 90 degree. So this is advantageous for the free movement of the first metacarpal bone. Next we'll see about the first metacarpal bone in detail. It is short and stout. The articular head presents a medial and a lateral tubercles on which the sesamoid bone glide. The lateral tubercle is more prominent. So when you see the palmar surface, it presents a large anterolateral area. So this is the anterolateral area and this is the anteromedial area. The anterolateral area receives the insertion of opponent's pollicis. The anteromedial area gives origin to the radial head of the first dorsal interosseous muscle. Here you can see the large anterolateral sloping area. It receives the insertion of the opponent's pollicis muscle. Likewise, the anteromedial area, it gives origin to the radial head of the first dorsal interosseous muscle. The dorsal surface of the shaft is rounded from side to side and it presents a no triangular flattening. The base presents a saddle-shaped articular surface which articulates with reciprocally curved distal articular surface of the trapezium to form the first carpo-metacarpal joint. The radial side of the base, it receives the insertion of abductor pollicis longus. The ulnar side of the base provides origin to the first palmar interosseous muscle. For side determination, place the head below, the concavity of the shaft in front, and the large anterolateral area of the palmar surface determines the side of the bone. So this is the left side first metacarpal bone. To place the first metacarpal bone in anatomical position, place the dorsal surface of the shaft lateral and the lateral border in front and the head below and lateral. So next we'll see about the second metacarpal bone in detail. It is the longest metacarpal bone and it is identified by the groove in the base which fits with the corresponding ridge of the trapezoid bone. The medial lip of the groove is prominent and it articulates with the capitate. More distally, the medial surface, it presents a indented facet for the third metacarpal bone. Then you have a quadrilateral facet on the dorsolateral aspect of the base which articulates with the trapezium bone. To determine the side, place the head below, then the concavity of the shaft in front and the quadrilateral facet of the groove base determines the side of the bone. So this is the left side second metacarpal bone. When you see the attachment, the anterolateral area and the anteromedial area, it provides origin respectively to the ulnar head of the first dorsal interosseous and the radial head of the second dorsal interosseous muscle. The narrow strip along the anteromedial area of the palmar surface of the shaft, it gives origin to the second palmar interosseous muscle. The palmar surface of the base, it receives the slip of insertion of flexor carpi radialis muscle. The dorsal surface of the base, it receives the insertion of extensor carpi radialis longus muscle. Next we'll study about the third metacarpal bone in detail. It is identified by the styloid process which projects upward from the radial side of the dorsal surface of its base. The base articulates proximally with the capitate and laterally by the intended facet with the second metacarpal bone and medially by two discrete facets with the fourth metacarpal bone. For side determination, place the head below the concavity of the shaft in front and the position of the styloid process, which is on the lateral side. So it determines the side. So this is the left side third metacarpal bone. When you see the attachment, the anterolateral and the anteromedial areas, it provides origin respectively to the ulnar head of the second dorsal interosseous and the radial head of the third dorsal interosseous muscle. The vertical palmar ridge of the shaft, it gives origin to the transverse head of the adductor pollicis muscle. The palmar surface of the base along with the adjacent second metacarpal bone, it receives the insertion of flexor carpi radialis muscle, which is partially encircled more distally by the origin of the oblique head of the adductor pollicis muscle. The dorsal surface of the base close to the styloid process, it provides insertion to the extensor carpi radialis brevis muscle. Next we'll see about the fourth metacarpal bone. It is identified by the quadrilateral articular facet on the proximal surface of its base, and the base articulates proximally with the hamate bone, and laterally by the two discrete facet with the third metacarpal bone. So this is a third metacarpal bone, and medially by a flattened strip with the fifth metacarpal bone. So this is a fifth metacarpal bone. When you see the side determination, the two facets of the quadrilateral base determines the side. When you see the attachment, the anterolateral and anteromedial areas of the shaft, it gives origin respectively to the ulnar head of the third dorsal interosseous and the radial head of the fourth dorsal interosseous muscle. A narrow strip along the anterolateral area of the palmar surface of the shaft, it gives origin to the third palmar interosseous muscle. Next we'll see about the fifth metacarpal bone. It is identified by the non-articular tubercle on the medial side of the base. The base articulates proximally with the hamate bone and laterally by a narrow strip with the fourth metacarpal bone. When you see the attachment, the anterolateral area of the shaft, it gives origin to the ulnar head of the fourth dorsal interosseous muscle. More ventrally, the anterolateral area, it provides origin to the fourth palmar interosseous muscle. Anteromedial area of the shaft, it receives the insertion of opponens digiti minimi. Non-articular tubercle of the base, it gives attachment to the piso-metacarpal ligament on the palmar surface. The dorsal surface of the base, it receives the insertion of extensor carpi ulnaris muscle.